Well, I think there's been some confusion in the past, and even now to some extent, about the role of the CPS. We now have significant powers. We decide the charges in cases that go to court. We take the decision as to whether cases should go to court. We also advise the police in the early stages of their investigations, particularly in major cases, so that we work together with them and shape the most effective prosecution right from the beginning of the inquiry.
Part of a Crown Prosecutor's week is spent in the office preparing cases, and part is spent in court, usually the Magistrates' Court, where most of our cases are dealt with. But when it comes to the more serious cases, they all come here, to the Crown Court. This is number 1 Crown Court in Cardiff. This is where the Recorder of Cardiff sits. The Crown Courts come in all shapes, all sizes, but this is one of my favourites. This is an impressive court, isn't it? Wood all around the walls, ancient judges glaring down at you. I'm not usually allowed up here. This is where the judge sits. Monarch of all his surveyors in this very grand courtroom. It's the judge's job to run the court and make sure that everything runs fairly and smoothly in accordance with the rules set down. Down there, you'd have the prosecuting. Over there, you'd have the defence. Immediately in front, that's where the defendant stands. On the left here, that's where all the witnesses go to give their evidence. Everybody in the court has to listen to their evidence, and in particular, the jury just sitting over there. Before cases even reach the courts, there's a lot of work to be done. Officers at CPS Gwent must prepare each case thoroughly, making sure that all facts and files are accurate, in order for prosecutors to put together a watertight case.
My name's Catherine Price, and I'm an A2 caseworker with the CPS. I've worked here for 11 years. I generally get files ready for the lawyers to take to court. Then when the files come back from court, I update them to the new court dates, or if they've been dealt with, I give them to the appropriate people. Send out disclosures to the defence, help warn witnesses for court, and basically make sure that evidence is chased on a file from the police.
I'm Kate Carlisle and I'm a senior Crown Prosecutor. And I do everything from advising on initial charges when a file is submitted by the police to then preparing the matters for trial. So what I'd always wanted to do was to be a criminal solicitor. And I started off defending, which I did for about 18 months before then I came over to the CPS. The good side. What you're trying to do is, in your own little way, just make the world a better place as far as you can, just your small portion of it. Trying to prosecute the offenders, looking at it from the victims and the witnesses' point of view, but justifying prosecuting these cases, making sure that it is in the public interest to prosecute some of these cases, which although they may be minor and low level, despite them being minor and low level, they can have a detrimental effect if you're a victim of a low level offence.
This is where the witnesses give evidence from. I gave evidence in court just once. It's a terrifying experience. So now we've got witness care units who make sure that they look after the witnesses, trying to help them through difficult times when they're worrying about coming to court, tell them how to come to court, perhaps show them around the court before they start, and keep in touch with them throughout to make sure that they know that they have the support of the Crown Prosecution Service when they're coming to give evidence for us. In the Witness Care Unit at Vantage Point, officers keep in touch with all the witnesses and victims involved in each case, always keeping them up to date and well informed.
In general, we inform all the witnesses and victims of all the court hearings that take place in a case from start to finish. Communicating with people, I think, is quite important. Knowing perhaps what to say, because you do often get asked some peculiar questions, which you try to answer to the best of your ability.
Get solutions to problems, I think, is the main thing, really, because the witnesses and victims have certain problems, childcare issues, things like that, transport issues, and you've got to try and sort of get into court. So we try out anything we can do to make it happen.
In this court, the prosecutor normally sits over here. What he's supposed to be doing is just presenting the case in the best possible way that he or she can. If the prosecutor is doing his job, then there's no need for the defence barrister or the judge to interrupt him. After that, he'll have to sit down and hand over to the defence barrister or solicitor. I'm the defence barrister on this side. I've just heard all the questions that have been put. I've heard all the answers, and I don't like most of them. I'm not allowed to bully. I'm not allowed to harass. If I do, my colleague over there, the good-looking one, will stand up and tell me that I shouldn't be asking that sort of questions. Back over this side, I'm prosecuting again. And I've heard the cross-examination, and I don't like that. So I do get an opportunity to ask one or two more extra questions. I can't say, "And then he hit you, didn't he?" But I can say things like, "Did anything happen? What happened? What happened next?" At this stage of the proceedings, I can only ask questions that arise out of what that ugly chap over there was just asking.
My name's James Wilson. My position is I'm a Crown Advocate and I'm based in the Trials Unit. My job is to go to the Crown Court and present the CPS's Crown Court cases. And I'm in the Crown Court almost every day, doing a variety of matters. I suppose the main bulk of my work would be violence, street violence, violence at night, people getting drunk, people hitting each other, getting badly assaulted. I was always interested in doing law, and particularly criminal law. And when I got to university, I found quite a lot of the law quite boring, things like trust and land law. But criminal evidence and criminal law I find absolutely fascinating.
Advocacy is really about taking the cases forward in court. We appear in all the courts, the Magistrates' Court, the Crown Court, and even in the Appeal Court, presenting the facts of the case as effectively and fairly as we can before the court, so that the court may take the correct decision. And we have to give it the appropriate information to enable it to do that.
In the end, once the jury has decided whether he's guilty or not guilty, and the judge has pronounced sentence, you'll know whether he walks out through that gate that I just walked in from, or down these steps, which lead directly to the cells, and from there off to prison. Knowing the judge in this case, I think I'll walk in this direction. But that's not the end of the matter in some cases. To ensure that prosecutions come to a satisfactory conclusion, an independent group is brought together to review cases at what's known as the Hate Crime Scrutiny Panel.
I'd like to make our target to go through, review one of these cases, at least one of the cases this morning. If we can do two, fantastic. But to review
these panels are brought together to discuss cases of domestic violence and cases with an element of racial, religious, homophobic or disability hatred. All aspects of the way in which the case has been dealt with are discussed in detail, and recommendations made as to how the CPS may improve its performance in future.
We are the CPS. We are here. This is a joint venture with the police and the CPS. So it's the criminal justice system that is here, and we're always here to help. And hopefully we get this message through to as many people as we can.